the Ron and Brian Podcast. Get ready to fill your ears with the latest news, politics, current events, and whatever else we feel like talking about this week. And now, your hosts, Ron and Brian.
All right. Good evening, everybody. It is Sunday night. It is time for the Ron and Brian Podcast, and all is right with the world. Because I am still your 51% owner. I am still your champion. Brian, how are you holding up? I know it has been an extremely rough week for you. While you answer, I'm just going to put my belt back in its normal place right behind me here, overlooking the podcast. Talk to me, my friend.
I'm not going to lie. It hurt. I suspected as soon as you had made your prediction that the Eagles were going to win the Super Bowl, and that was where you were placing your championship belt bet on. I knew right off the bat. I said, listen, the chances of me winning this belt are slim. I did not think the Kansas City Chiefs had it. It looked like they were struggling throughout the playoffs. They were struggling. They were not, easy victories. Whereas the Philadelphia Eagles football team, they were making it look very easy. In the same way that, Ron, you made it look very easy retaining the belt this year. And you know what? I'm going to say this. A lot of my supporters have already announced plans to file a petition for a recall. They've announced that, the hashtag not my champion is the use on social media has just absolutely mushroomed over the past week. My message to my supporters is this is a time for us to rally around our leader. Ron is our champion for the next 365 days. We need to support him. Together, we are all stronger when our championship title rests with someone who is focused purely on the podcast, the show, not distracted by anything else like a backyard deck being created or his school. So the thing is this, it's easy to lash out. It's easy to say that Ron doesn't represent us, the 49%. He only represents himself. But I want to say to my followers, to my fans, let's give him a shot. Let's give him an opportunity to correct what he has ignored last year. Maybe this is the year that he's going to focus on the show and grow it.
All right. Well, two things. First, I don't know. Is your microphone working correctly? Are you on your computer mic or your regular mic? But number two,
way to tell.
I think if there are people out there that are unhappy, I guess my only thing I can say is whether you like it or you don't like it, learn to love it because it's the best thing going. It was a very exciting Super Bowl for those of us down in the Philadelphia area. People are wondering, Juan, why is it so bright out when you were recording this at night? There are still a number of car fires out there from the Philadelphia World Championship Parade. So because of all the random fires and things out there, it's a little brighter in my office than it normally would be on a Sunday night. Hopefully things will get under control. Only 3 people shot, Brian, during the Super Bowl parade, all by the same individual. So I'm going to count that as a win.
And I heard overnight they arrested somebody.
They did, yes. They did arrest somebody.
Any guesses what football team that person's a fan of?
I mean, I would assume probably the Eagles if they were among the 2 million people.
So what you're saying to me as you smile with your support of the Eagles, you're saying that 100% of football championship parade shooters this year were Philadelphia Eagles fans.
I mean, I guess if you want to extrapolate that from the data, yes, you could do so.
Well, it's an interesting group of people that you are getting in bed with and sharing support with. I'm just saying, you may want to rethink it. You may want to rethink your support.
Listen, it was a great parade. Not as good as 2018, I feel, but I'm still not sure what my favorite part of the parade was. There was a lot of cursing on live TV, which I'm always a fan of. I did love the crowd as they chanted "Wrap It Up" to Philadelphia Mayor Sherelle Parker, because her speech went on just a little long. And the Eagles GM, Howie Roseman, catching a stray can of beer in his forehead, cutting him open. But he said, you know what? Just rubbed some dirt on it, stuck a cigar in his mouth, and got back to work.
Was there any talk of you attending this parade with the wife?
So the wife wanted to go down, and I was like, "You're welcome to go down." I'm like, "I'm not going to go."
You wouldn't
like. I went to, I think we've had this discussion. I went to the Yankees World Series parade in New York in 1996. And that was enough to make me remember that I just don't want to go to a parade like that again. Because like driving in would have been ridiculous. Parking would have been ridiculous. I think I sent you videos of the line of people wrapped 2 or 3 times around 30th Street Station. A great callback, Billy. Could she have used her parking garage for the parade? If she still worked for that company and had held on to that parking garage that she wasn't using but paying for each month, yes, we could have used that garage. But unfortunately, she thankfully canceled that a while back. But kudos to the Eagles. Kudos to me remaining your podcast champion. Brian, seems like you have one more thing you want to say before we move on.
I did. And I was going to let it slide, but I do feel that I have to call you out on this because you call yourself a fan, you call yourself a supporter, you call yourself a man of the people. Your football team wins the Super Bowl for the first time in 25 years? Wasn't it 25? I thought
no, it was 7.
Felt like 25. And you refused to show up for your championship parade. Whereas I can't help but be struck by the comparison, and a lot of people made it on social media this past week, that when the New York Liberty, New York's WNBA franchise, when they won their championship earlier this week,
right?
Which of the 2 podcast hosts was right there in the middle of the parade celebrating with his gals, his winners, his champions, showing his support? It was me. So I just find it really striking how, when my teams win, I'm there in the parade, waving to the players and whatnot. When your team wins, you decide to stay in your secluded lily white suburban home. That's the part that I think needs to be pointed out.
Listen, Brian, that and $5 will get you a cup of coffee. What it won't get you is this championship belt right behind me. In the meantime, let's get things rolling with Drink of the Week.
Drink of the Week.
Na zdrowie.
Salud. Drink of the Week. Pleasure.
Drink of the Week. Drink of the Week. Drink of the Week.
I will say this real quick, Brian. I have already placed my money on the Philadelphia Eagles to win next year's Super Bowl.
What kind of odds are you getting?
Plus 600. They are odds-on favorite to win. Chiefs, you're getting plus 650 at the moment.
Chiefs are. I can't imagine them with the way they look this playoff. How
they're going to get brutalized because of the salary cap coming up this year. So it'll see. But regardless, Brian, what did you bring to this first show of my next championship reign to drink?
Drinking coffee. What we're doing here is a blend. We have got probably, I would say, 75% Starbucks French roast, and we're combining that with 25% Starbucks Sumatra. This coffee was ground earlier this morning by myself, and I made a full pot of it, and now I will be drinking it.
All right, very nice.
I find Starbucks French roast to just be a little too bitter.
It is.
I do like the boldness of it, but it's a little bitter. So I feel like if you cut it with some of the Sumatra, it takes off some of that bitter finish. So that is my coffee of choice. Ron?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes, my friend.
What are you drinking?
So surprisingly enough, I'm also drinking coffee on this fine day. This is another collaboration. It is the same folks that brought you the Impotent Brian Ale that I drank on the show the other week. This is in honor of Brian needing to sit in his chair and watch me be champion for the next 52 weeks. This is the Cuckold Brian Brew. It's bold, yet weak. Has kind of a gray after finish to it, but it's just delicious. I mean, we're gonna have this available via the web store soon, and so Cuckold Brian Brew.
How are you enjoying that Cuckold Brian Brew?
It is strangely satisfying.
I have a question, not to interrupt the drink of the week bit.
Of course not.
Do you ever hit that moment where you feel like you may be spending too much time on the internet?
Yeah, most definitely.
Yesterday, I had to explain to some close friends what a cuck chair was. To me, this is just common knowledge. This is kind of like somebody saying, "What's the Constitution?" or "Why is the sky blue?" Like just common knowledge. It should be. So I was in their living room, sitting on the couch. I looked over, and there's just this one lone chair facing the couch. So I looked over at it to say, "Hey, look, there's a cuck chair." The awkward glance I got from people wondering, A, did I just say fuck chair? And then I had to explain what a cuck chair was, and how it originated, from an old English term of a man who was feckless and whose wife really ran the show, to the porn references, the very popular cuck section of your famous adult websites, to now the famous cuck chair in hotel rooms that get reviews. To me, it's like breathing. The word cuck. watching two grown adults who are our age who have never heard of the term cuck. Oh, it just made me sit there and realize.
Is it that you're spending too much time on the internet, or you're so bored with the standard content of the internet that you found these little niches that you really? And again, I felt the same way when I was giving the other week a very in-depth breakdown as to the background of the Drake-Kendrick Lamar beef to people my age who wondered why I knew so much about the Kendrick-Drake beef and how fascinated I was by it. So again, I think it's less time on the internet, and we just find these things that just fascinate us. You all especially, you try and pervert my algorithm on an ongoing basis. So I am on cuck talk, if you will, because it just constantly is coming up in my TikTok now.
And yet you do find some really good cuck chairs in hotels. Like, there's the thing, there's a whole community of people that review the cuck chairs when they enter a hotel room.
Right.
And some of these hotels really take it up a notch.
It's a thing and it has been a thing in hotel design. We call it soft seating. You call it a cuck chair. We call it soft seating. And so basically it's just, for some reason, there is still this thought in the hotel industry that people want that single relaxing chair to sit in, not a work chair, not at a work desk, but a relaxing chair to sit in. And to your point, if it were facing the TV, that would make sense. That's kind of like what you have at home. But when it literally only faces the bed, that's when it gets a little unnerving. And
yet every hotel you go to has that one chair that is facing the bed. Oh, so
without a doubt.
So good.
All right. Well, let's get back into it with beef of the week, folks.
Ron and Brian's Beef of the Week.
Brian, what's bothering you this week?
Listen, this is not an original thought. I think we may have already talked about this. People that don't wipe the workspaces down at a gym. Yesterday I went to the gym, humble brag, and there was a guy in the gym who was using multiple machines at the same time. So I'm on the elliptical. I'm there for like 40 minutes. So I'm in my own world, in the sense of I have headphones on, I'm not moving, but I'm hyper aware of my surroundings, and I am staring and judging at the other people working out. That's fact. There was a guy there, I'm going to say probably late 50s, early 60s. Just looked. He looked like he had the body of a marathon runner. Not an ounce of fat on this man, but he was profusely sweating. He was on the what's the not the elliptical treadmill. He's on the treadmill, like 2 rows ahead of me, and the place is empty. So basically, I'm staring at him, and as he's running, I'm watching beads of sweat collect on his elbow and then drop down. Like, that's the level of workout this guy was putting in. So the beads of sweat are just dropping down. And then I watched him stop running and just walk away from the machine. And because of the angle of the light coming into the room, I could see the pools of sweat underneath the treadmill that were just left there. And I was horrified. I was disgusted. And if I had been elected to the board, I would have said something. But because my neighbors did not elect me to the board, this has been a month of
it's been
rejections.
Rough.
It's been a rough month.
You've gone through it.
Yes. I wanted to say something to him, but I decided not to. Partly because I was in minute 23 and I just needed to keep going. I didn't want to interrupt myself, but I really was just horrified, disgusted. And then I watched him go use 2 other machines without ever wiping them down. And I was horrified, just horrified.
Although maybe this is what you need to be doing now, because you'll be able to run for a seat on the board next year, correct?
Correct. Just in the same way that I can run for the podcast championship belt a year from now.
So maybe what you need to be doing is you need to be enforcing your own brand of justice, but taking down like photos or videos so that you can start saying like, Brian, for the people, and a photo of you like, forcing somebody to clean the gym equipment. Brian, for the people, a video of you forcing a group of kids to clean up the movie room after they use it. Brian, for the people, getting one of the maintenance workers fired because their neckline wasn't high enough. Like that, I feel should be your campaign. You should be starting now. I think maybe that's an issue because you're so new to the building. It's a familiarity issue. Much like, people don't associate you with the title belt because you've held it for such a short period of time in relation to how long it's been around. Maybe you just need to insert yourself and make people think Brian is for the people. You can take that. You can have that. I'm not even going to charge you for that tagline.
That hurts. Speaking of hurting, right up the bat, William Esquire saying, what type of running is this? Is Brian going to hurt himself? Probably. Emotionally, definitely going to hurt myself.
There's some emotional damage there, without a doubt.
Ron.
Yes.
What's bugging you?
So this week, Brian, my beef is with the producers of the show Love is Blind on Netflix. I feel, and we've talked about this before, I feel we hit these valleys. There are peaks and valleys of the streaming services. And I feel like the last month, let's say, not a lot of great new content on any of the streaming services. Like a lot of stuff seeming coming up. I've seen a bunch of shows that I want to see later this month in March. And I came down the other day and sat down, and my lovely bride is in her regular couch position. And I see that there is yet another season of Love is Blind. Now, Brian, are you familiar with the premise of this show?
I vaguely, I've never watched an episode, but I do know a couple people in my office who watch it regularly. So I've been forced to have to sit there quietly on my phone while other people ramble for 18 minutes about the various couples. Is this the one in Australia?
So it started, this is the US version, but yes, they have done Love is Blind Australia, Love is Blind. Although you might be thinking of Married at First Sight Australia, which has been in the media a lot lately.
You're right. That's
because
what
of a
I was
lot of
thinking of. I
drama
hate
going
you.
on.
Okay, keep going. Yeah, no, that is exactly Married at Sight. Yeah. Keep going. So Love is
Love
Blind.
is Blind is basically you have a group of men, group of women, and they have individual dates in these little pods. They don't see each other. They get to know each other just through conversations they have between these walls, and then they determine sight unseen if they want to get engaged and get married. And so by the end of the regular season, they get engaged, and then they finally meet each other in person, and then they get to, this is the most horrific thing of all I think about this show, is they get to the point where it's their wedding day. Like they don't decide for the most part, they don't decide before wedding day as to whether they're going to get married or not. So you literally will have an entire wedding ceremony, bride and groom up at the front, family sitting there, and then you're waiting to see if both of them are going to say I do. And like a good 80% of the time, one of them says, no, I don't think I can do this.
Sure. So when in terms of from the time that they are having these no contact dates to the time of the wedding, when do they first see each other?
So whenever the experience of them being in these pods ends,
right?
So I mean, I don't know what the set time frame is, but there's clearly a set period of time. Maybe it's like a month, maybe it's less. Right. And then once they have picked their significant other, then they get to meet each other. Then what they'll do is, and this is just pure chaos, because people can have attractions to multiple people and then they narrow it down, but then they'll have like group events after the fact. So it's like, you end up with some of these couples being like, oh, well, maybe I should have gone with her. Oh, maybe I should have gone with him. Okay. But regardless, I hate the show. It's everything that is bad with society. And they've managed to find the most annoying people. Like I'm sitting there and I hear this voice, and it is like, it's the kind of voice that RFK Jr. would say, wow, that's a fucked up voice. And it's coming from this woman. It's like, and I said to Susan, I'm like, is she sick? Like, it's like vocal fry, but more broken up and cracky. Okay. And then just the guy she's talking to is like, sounding like he's doing a very bad Matthew McConaughey impersonation. But it's just, we don't want this content. This is not what makes America great again, Brian. We need serial killer docuseries. We need shows that lift us up, Brian. They don't tear us down. And that's my beef of the week. Thankfully, she is blowing through episodes as we speak. So I am sure she will be through this season probably by the time we finish recording our shows today.
Okay, good. Then she can move on to another show, correct?
Yes. I mean, she has caught up to the latest season of Married at First Sight. So normally she waits so that she can just kind of binge watch the entire series, but she started a little early. So I think the next episode of Married at First Sight comes out tomorrow, maybe.
Hopefully you'll miss it. Is this your way of segueing into what are you watching?
I mean, if you would like to talk about what you are watching, we most certainly can do so.
Well, we know what you're watching.
Yes.
I really only have two things to throw in here for this week. Severance, season 2, episode 5. I can't, you can't pick this show apart anymore. The amount of meat that this show provides you. I'm loving this season. I'm loving the show. Can't wait for you and your missus to get into it. Also, tried out The Gorge on Apple TV. Starring Miles Teller and Anya, I don't know her name, from Queen's Gambit, the one whose eyes are pretty far apart. What? I'm not allowed to point out that her eyes are unnaturally far apart? They are.
You're more than welcome to do so.
It's weird and distracting. Now, I'm not saying she should have plastic surgery to like tighten them closer. I'm just saying that her eyes are somewhat far apart. The story is that there apparently is like this crevice into hell somewhere on Earth, and on one side is an American sharpshooter. On the other side of this hill, there is a Russian sharpshooter, his and hers, and their job is to basically shoot to death anything that crawls out of the hole. That's the story.
Okay,
a little lean on the plot. And not necessarily, I would not recommend it to anyone.
All
But it
right.
was on Apple TV. So I sat there, I was like, you know what? If it's on
Usually
Apple
they have
TV,
decent shows.
I will give it a watch. I think this is their foray into like action horror.
Right.
And, the little weird, creepy alien things start crawling out. What was I going to say? Spoiler alert for those people that want to watch it. Just fast forward a couple seconds. But at about I would say 3/4 into it, Miles Teller, the American sharpshooter, he wins the championship belt, and he's not gracious about it. He really turns into a
No?
big asshole. Yeah, he just turns into an asshole that nobody likes because he just
Right.
rubs it in everyone's faces.
Well,
Even the aliens in the bottom are just like, put the belt down, pick up your gun, let's have a fair
it's too
fight
much.
here.
It's too much
We
of the title
don't
belt.
care about the belt. There's a lot of scenes where he's like holding it up and he's kissing it. It's gross behavior by a grown
It's
man.
what the people want,
Ron,
Ryan. It's what the people
Ron,
want.
what are you watching other than Love Is
So
Blind?
we are getting through Silo season 2, also on Apple TV. A little so I'm mixed by this because it's a little slower than the first season, but you are definitely digging more into the story. So it's like it's interesting. I just wish the pace would pick up a little bit. We started watching a new docuseries on Paramount Plus called Burden of Guilt. It's about this woman who, when she was 2 years old, her 4-month-old brother died from like a head injury. And you find out that her mother blamed the child's death on her 2-year-old daughter, saying, "Oh, they were playing around. She threw the kid out of the crib accidentally." And so, but the crazy thing is apparently back in like the early 70s, you could have a 4-month-old die in your house, and the police really just aren't going to do anything as long as you just said it was an accident. So then she doesn't find out till later on in her life. Like her family members all knew that her mother said that she killed her brother, but she didn't find out till she was like in her 20s. So then
The mom killed the
well,
child?
we don't. So at this point, you don't know who may have killed the child. Like you're pretty sure that the kid was beaten to death based on forensic records. And then you find out that the dad is like a very shady character who was part of the Dixie Mafia and, was doing prison time for other. So I just reached the end of the first episode where you start finding out like what a shithole, like you get the sense going along, like, all right, the dad probably killed the kid. And then, so I'm waiting to see what we find out in the next episode. But some great, I'm looking forward to some great shows coming up. They've got the Gabby Petito murder. They've got a docuseries coming out. I think what's today? Coming out tomorrow on Netflix. So I'll be checking that out.
Also, White Lotus season 3 starts tonight.
White Lotus season 3.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah. So I just wish, now that we have all these streaming services, I think we need another streaming service that will pull in all the shows that you would watch from the individual streaming services and have it in one platform. That's going to be my Shark Tank idea, Brian.
Isn't that called a television?
No, I'm just saying, like, if you didn't have to open all of your individual apps, if you just had one single app you could go to that connected to all your other apps and said, I like this type show. Sure. I like serial killer docuseries. All right, well, here is all the... Listen, don't crush my dream, Brian, right away. What the hell?
All I'm saying is that you're looking for an app to do something that I believe the technology and the equipment already does. Like when you turn on the television, all your streaming services are right there, no?
But are all your shows there, Brian? That's what I'm saying.
It's a second click.
I feel, again, you have to go into each individual app, scroll through. You know what? Maybe this, much like the title belt, maybe this is too far above you to really understand.
Can I also point out, and this has been a subtlety that I missed, but the disrespect has been huge. That's my cap behind you, and has apparently been there for months now.
Oh yeah.
I left that in your house. October?
Sometime last year, yeah. And then you forgot it the next time you were down.
That hat, that is my hat that you have you have placed right over your shoulder.
It's like a trophy, like a hunter will hang the rhino head on his wall. I've emasculated you by keeping your hat and placing it right there with hurtful. My title belt.
Hurtful. Absolutely hurtful.
Well, Brian, let's get to our stories of the week. As many longtime listeners, folks that have been listening for the 78 years we have been doing this podcast, we always like to grab a couple of stories and get them out to you. Brian, what is your story of the week this week?
My story of the week takes us to Neil Howard in Illinois. Do we have a photo of him?
I believe we do.
He looks like, oddly, he's from Illinois, but he's wearing a Texas shirt. So right off the bat, the man's confused. Ron, I have a question. Your mother was saintly. She was,
I would say
saintly. Just, one of the good ones, I believe is how, all of her friends refer to her. My mom, just literally an angel. Could do no wrong. But not every mother is incredibly virtuous, is incredibly moral and morale. Neil Howard, unfortunately, he did not look at his mother as somebody who should be put up on a pedestal. You are looking at his mugshot because earlier this week, Neil Howard strangled his 60-year-old mother. Earlier this week, he was convicted of her death. He strangled her with a bungee cord in their shared home because, quote, he was sick of her sleeping around. That's correct. How would you feel if you were 46 and your mom was just giving it out to all them graffiti boys? He was sitting at home alone in the family's house in Troy, Illinois, when his mother returned from a date back in September of 2023. He had been drinking, so we throw him a little, just a slight bit of, maybe he wasn't, in his full faculties, but he still needs to be held responsible.
Sure.
He got upset at her for coming back for just sleeping around. So he grabbed a bungee cord, wrapped it around his mom's neck, strangled her to death. He told police that he had had enough of her sleeping around. She came home at 1:30 and he snapped. Called police later that morning to say that his mother was not responsive. Listen, your mother may not be perfect, but that does not give you an excuse to kill her.
Yeah. And if you're saying that because you typically will advocate violence towards women, so for you to be coming to her defense, very admirable on your part.
Thank you. We lift and support women on the show, Ron.
Yes.
Ron, what's your story of the week?
Well, Brian, are you a fan of the McDonald's Shamrock Shake?
I cannot. I may never have tried it.
Really? I remember having them.
McDonald's. I don't really do I'll do Chick-fil-A every now and then, but then I have to donate the same amount to a LGBTQ positive charity. But I'm not the Burger Kings, the McDonald's. It's garbage food. You're poisoning yourself.
I remember when I was younger, like it was always a big thing, like, oh, the Shamrock Shake is coming around and we'd have one. And so apparently there was this character that they reintroduced this week, Brian, Uncle O'Grimacy, apparently part of the Grimace cinematic universe. They brought him back this year. It is the 50th anniversary of Ronald McDonald House Charities. So they're going to be making a donation to Ronald McDonald House for every shake that's sold, which is such a racket if you think about it. They start this charity, basically it feels like so they can get a tax write-off. Like they're running the charity, but they pay money. Anyway, so apparently
why don't they just make the donation to the Ronald McDonald House? Why is it that I have to go out and buy a milkshake for them to make this donation? They already have the money. They want to give it to their own charity. Why do I have to go out and buy a milkshake?
So apparently, Uncle O'Grimacy had been around in the 70s, which again, I was a child of the 70s. You were a child of the 70s. Do you remember Uncle O'Grimacy at all? So apparently rolled out in like 1975, was phased out towards the end of the 70s. So according to some McDonald's history, that was when they like purged a bunch of apparently there was a lot of McDonald's characters that they just phased out. But the other thing that came out was people are saying there was an alleged incident in Philadelphia, of course, because bad things happen in Philadelphia, back in 1978, where somebody was inside the Uncle O'Grimacy mascot costume and made comments supporting the IRA and saying that British soldiers were better dead than alive. And so that is what fascinated me about this story is, while you can certainly believe they phased out a bunch of characters, I can also believe someone from Philadelphia would put on a mascot costume and make statements in support of the IRA.
Yes, that's wild.
Yeah.
There was also that kid touching arrest, Uncle O'Grimacy. He was feeling up the kids, no?
What? I don't recall seeing that online, but I guess
they hushed it up. They hushed it up and removed all references on social media. But yeah, he was touching kids.
I mean, you would hear about it today. Like, I think like we lived in a simpler time back in the 70s where you could do things outrageous and it wouldn't make national headlines.
Like hold hostage a podcast championship belt year after year after year.
Listen, you lost it fair and square 2 years ago, and now you have to sit and watch as my belt cuckolds your hat until the next time you are down here.
It's going to be a long year. It's going to be a long year.
I promise to be more obnoxious and more insufferable regarding the title belt over the next, I guess, 51 weeks, because we're already a week into it.
Sure.
And I know my wife not happy that the belt remains here. Your future wife extremely happy that the belt is not returning to the ivory tower.
Yes.
Brian, we are gearing up also for our next big pandemic over the next 51 weeks, as a dairy worker in Nevada has been confirmed to be infected by a new bird flu strain found to be spreading amongst cows. This is a strain of the H5N1 bird flu virus called D1-1, different from a previous variant called B3.13, which has infected at least 40 dairy workers in the U.S. to date. This D1.1 was also behind a fatal case in Louisiana last year. So it is very interesting to see that this bird flu, which did not pass over initially from birds to animals, is now passing from birds to animals to humans. And we are starting to see different varieties of it. The B3.13 right now has only led to symptoms of conjunctivitis, pink eye, in many cases, and it's supposedly less severe. But the D1.1 is the one scientists are watching for and are concerned about.
Ron, I'm not nervous. I am not afraid, and I will tell you why. Because of the man sitting behind the resolute desk in our White House, Donald J. Trump. He has already proven to this world, to this nation, that he can handle a pandemic. He knows what it's like to stare down Mother Nature and say, no, not on my watch. Stop testing. Stop publishing the results. Shut down the CDC website. Nobody needs to know about this. He already has experience in handling a pandemic. That is why I'm okay with the oncoming bird flu.
All right. Well, if the bird flu isn't going to get us, Brian, it's possible that an asteroid will. We've started seeing reports the other week about asteroid 2024 YR4. It is a 100 meter by 40 meter rock out in space. There was a slight chance, I think 1 in 83 chance of this hitting the Earth in 2032. Well, now that they've been able to track the path of the asteroid, they have increased it to 1 in 67. And then with more data, they have said it's now a 1 in 43 chance that this asteroid will hit us on December 22nd. 2032. So for those folks still around in 2032, maybe hold out for your Christmas shopping till the last minute. Brian,
what was the year?
Earth?
Hold on.
2032. We're 7 years away, Brian.
2030. Oh, Jesus. That's actually a frightening statistic.
So are you team Earth or team asteroid, Brian?
I'm team let's get this over with. Bring it on. Bring it on. Let's get it over with. Let's all move forward.
So
I'm
here's
done.
another question: Would you prefer to be in the impact zone or potentially live through the cataclysmic after effects of an asteroid landing?
I want to be taken out as quickly as possible. You don't?
No, I've just, I always wonder, like, would you want the drama of being obliterated right away, or would you like the romantic, I'm going to stand on the shore of the ocean and let the tsunami take us away?
Ron, do I, and at any point in all the years that you've known me, do I look like a hunter-gatherer? The infrastructure of society has just been shattered. Am I going to be able to go out there and feed myself and my loved ones? No, absolutely not. This is not
Right.
This is not someone who's going to be able to, go out there and trap a salmon swimming up the Hudson. I'm not going to be
Right.
able to do that. I'm not going to be able to go out there and jump off a tree and stab a wild boar like Rambo did, for food in his forest cave. It's over. So if I see it coming, I'm walking towards the impact zone.
See, we were having this. We were hanging out with the Jardis again yesterday, and we had this conversation because Marty Jardy was talking about how technology isn't exactly her thing, and we all agreed that we really keep Marty around because she would be our best chance to survive in a post-apocalyptic world. Like, she is the person that can hunt, can gather, can kill, can cook, the whole 9 yards. So I think if you want to survive, come hang with
come
with
down to Philly. I may be already down there by that point.
Great comments, by the way. I like pointing out the dichotomy of our listeners sometime. William says we need Bruce Willis and the Ben Affleck to take care of the asteroid, kind of
Good
taking
reference.
what I would consider the low-hanging fruit of making an Armageddon reference, where Allie said, as long as my glasses still work and don't break on this library steps, I want to survive. Amazing Twilight Zone Burgess Meredith reference. So just more layers there. I like a comment with many layers.
Many layers.
Many layers, Jerry.
And then we got JoJo.
It
Says, flush it all away.
Flush it all away. Brian, we've been watching with, I don't know if I would call it glee, but a level of self-satisfaction as we are seeing people that supported Donald Trump for president, seeing how his policies or his ramblings are negatively affecting them.
Sure.
He had talked about during the Super Bowl getting rid of pennies, which,
yes,
granted, I didn't realize how much pennies cost. Like, I've heard a penny costs anywhere from 2 cents to 3.5 cents to make, which seems
correct.
Ridiculous. And apparently every piece of change costs more money.
Sure.
So maybe there's a better way to do it, but he has started to panic people by saying that he may actually talk the Department of Treasury into stop minting new pennies. And this is going to potentially impact Greene County, Tennessee, a very heavily red county in Tennessee that has a company called Artisan LLC that is the sole supplier of blank discs used to make pennies. They would assume that if that were to happen, they would have to close down and lay off their 330 people. Again, apparently all are primarily Donald Trump supporters.
Really? I love it.
Yeah.
Well, to me, the bigger worry about taking out the penny is, does it not feel that suddenly prices are going to go up? Everything because you're going to have to round up to the nickel. Unless this is a ploy by Doge and Elon to basically use this as a driving force to eliminate physical money, to sit there and start the concept of we're losing money by printing physical money, so therefore we should just all embrace a complete electronic payment system,
cashless society, Brian. Then we get microchips implanted into our arm. It is the textbook coming of the Antichrist, Brian.
But also, didn't Elon just announce that he is taking over an online payment system? that he's
so
going to
X
start
Money,
using?
he is
X Money.
going to be rolling out, which apparently he is partnering with Visa on, which is leading a number of people to say that they're going to get rid of their Visa cards. But at the end of the day, the credit card companies are all in bed with one another. I don't know.
Absolutely.
That's, going to Huntsville, Alabama, Brian. Again, another heavily red, heavily MAGA city. About 250 Huntsville utilities customers received a surprise this past week when they received letters notifying them that their accounts were about to be debited $100 because they were getting assistance received through grants distributed by the Community Action Partnership of Huntsville Counties, which were revoked following an executive order from President Donald Trump. So it's amazing how many, maybe it's not amazing, but it's somewhat amazing that there are so many government programs that people are receiving benefits from that they don't even realize that they're receiving the benefits from that are now going away. Whether it's tax incentives, whether it's grants for education, for energy, what have you. I've seen a ton of farmers talking about how the dissolving of the USAID has caused contracts they have had to provide food to other countries. We're talking millions and millions of dollars. They're now, those contracts are being canceled.
You're the one. Go.
No, they talked to a farmer who had a contract for $800 million for his farm to provide food for overseas. And now he's like, well, now I may have to shut down. Help me, President Trump. It's ridiculous how these executive orders have gutted a lot of the red areas. We see it with the new budget proposal. They want to cut $880 billion out of Medicaid, which is not the entire Medicaid budget, but it's like 98% of it. And also reduce SNAP benefits by 20%. Brian, would you like to guess what areas of the country are the primary users of SNAP benefits?
Red states, South,
red counties, counties. If you look at the percentage of families and households that rely on SNAP, it literally follows the electoral map from this past election.
You're the one that introduced me a couple years ago to the concept of the states that put in money to the federal government and the states that take it out, and how it was just so such a symbol of the utter lack of awareness or amongst the masses, how the states that are most trumpeting this concept of small government, small federal government, these are states that don't put into the federal government because they are taking more money out than they put in. They are actually they're the ones receiving this aid. They're whereas the states that are putting money into, because they are generating enough income tax and sales tax and whatnot to put into the federal government, they tend to be liberal states.
Right.
So it's the irony that you've got these voices that are sitting there saying, like, we need to cut down benefits. All these lazy people are just taking money from the government. And it's the voices that are saying that tend to more likely be taking money out of the federal government.
Right. I mean, we've always talked about how red states, if you look at, where states rank in terms of education, red states primarily make up the bottom half of the states in this country. Well, what do you think is going to happen when the Department of Education goes away and there's no federal funding? Again, they're taking federal funding from the states putting more money in, which is traditionally the blue states, and they're using that to prop up education in these red states. And the red states are still failing based on how they're mismanaging those funds. Imagine what happens when they have to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps, as you would say.
Not happening.
It's gonna be interesting to see how it plays out over the next 4 years. Also, trying to get rid of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which is a bureau that has literally given millions of dollars back to the American people. They have gone after, banks, credit card companies, other large organizations that have screwed over the American people. And again, you're seeing these conservative people, these people that voted for Trump saying, wait a minute, I got $5,000 back from my bank because they screwed me over on interest fees. What's going to happen?
Right.
Well, you want small government. You want the states to take care of things. If you're in Texas, go ask your Greg, whatever that guy's name is. He can't even give you a solid power grid in the state.
Sure.
He's not going to worry about whether the banks are screwing you over.
Correct. It literally this administration is going to be a free for all of just scams, of just theft. Corporate theft is going to just go unchecked. And it's just the safeguards are falling. We'll survive it. I think there's a lot of people overreacting and acting like this is calamitous and the end of the earth. That's going to be the asteroid. Okay, well, that's the asteroid.
We will survive it, but there are a number of people that literally will not survive this, either from a food security standpoint, from being able to afford healthcare. I mean, I think they posted an article the other day, somebody in another country that had died because the hospital he was in ran out of oxygen because they have been receiving funding from the U.S. government that was cut off by a Trump executive order. So people are literally dying right now based on the decisions this administration has made. One of the most egregious things, I think, personally, this past week is the Justice Department telling the Southern District attorneys to drop the corruption charges against New York City Mayor Eric Adams because they are concerned about him supporting Trump's migrant laws. But also I'm sorry. What's the word?
Distracting. They said that him putting together a defense would distract him from supporting the federal government's initiatives to address the migrant situation. Literally, not even addressing whether he's guilty of it or not.
Right.
Not even saying whether the levity of the crimes of an elected official who is literally trading building permits for consulates in exchange for tens of thousands of dollars going into his reelection campaign. I mean, as a politician, what's the one thing you're not supposed to do? Trade influence for money. Right. That's what he's being charged with doing. And they're not even saying, hey, listen, we think that he's being, targeted by the Department of Justice. We think he's being unfairly. No, they're saying, hey, for him to have to, put together defense, it's going to distract us from our agenda. So just drop the charges. Let's pretend.
Well, the thing is, and they want to dismiss them with prejudice or without prejudice, one or the other, whichever one allows them to reinstate the charge.
Based on his skin color, you don't want to do anything with prejudice. Okay, you just want to let that slide. Just treat him like a human. Right? I know you want to treat him differently, but you have to treat him equal and the same.
But they wanted to dismiss the charges with the understanding that they can always reinstate the charges later down the line. So it's your typical carrot and the stick thing. Like, here's the carrot: we're going to dismiss these charges if you work with the administration. But the stick is
you always have to turn
up. If you don't work with us, we're just going to reinstate these charges, and you're going to have to deal with it down the line.
Unbelievable.
Utterly unbelievable. This has led to a flood of resignations within the DOJ. Manhattan U.S. Attorney Danielle Sassoon gave a lengthy resignation letter. I saw another individual. He was an attorney under Danielle Sassoon, who wrote a very similar letter. It was a little bit shorter. It basically said, you're accusing me of not, following the rules and supporting Danielle Sassoon dismissing these charges. He's like, she never dismissed them. She resigned, so I didn't do it. I'm not going to do it. I assume you will find someone, and he used a quote somewhere along the lines of, I'm sure you will find someone spineless enough to follow your rules, but it will not be me. And please accept my resignation from this position. So you still have people that have a smidge of integrity
Right.
within the Justice Department, but few and far between.
Oh, well, it's going to be a long 4 years. We know this. It's
Yeah.
going to be a long 4 years.
But that's, man, it's just insane. Like, it's literally like it was, I don't feel the corruption was as out in front of everybody as it was in Trump's first administration. Like, it was
I think
there,
it was. I think
but
it was.
I don't know that it was, I don't know that it was this blatant. Like, there was stuff that was shady, but this right here,
he was
blatant.
he was impeached for holding back aid to Ukraine unless they investigated Hunter Biden. Like, he was impeached for it. We are all like let's not forget what those 4 years were. We absolutely knew what we were dealing with. It was out there. We just sat there and said we need to do whatever we have to not do this again, and we got sleepy Joe Biden.
We did, yeah.
And then we forgot about what happened the first time. Remember the Secret Service having to fly over to Scotland just to stay at his hotel? Like, they traveled like 100 miles out of the way just so that they could spend a couple $1 million supporting one of his hotels. It's disgusting. It's going to be a long 4 years, people. Stay awake. Keep talking about it. Don't let it become the norm.
Another story here, a 12-year-old Indiana girl who is a distant relative to Vice President JD Vance has been barred a spot on a heart transplant list because she has not been vaccinated against COVID-19 and the flu. Adeline Deal was born with two rare heart conditions that her family knew would one day require a transplant. She was adopted from China by her parents when she was 4. She was treated at Cincinnati Children's Hospital for nearly 10 years. Her parents hoped she would get a transplant there, but the hospital requires transplant patients to be vaccinated and declined to make an exemption even when told it goes against the family's religious beliefs as non-denominational Christians. And of course, the mother kind of playing the victim, saying, wow, I thought it's not about the kid. It's not about saving her life. I think people don't understand it's about more than that when you're on a transplant list. Like, it's more like there are so many rules when you're on a transplant list. Vaccination is just one of them. Like, if you're getting certain transplants, you can't drink alcohol. Like, you have all these rules because your body is not made to be given a transplant. And so to be able to survive a transplant, you kind of have to be healthier than the average person.
Ron, are you saying hold on? Are you saying that you support the death of 12-year-old girls? Because that's what I'm hearing. Is this what kind of champion you're going to be in this next term of yours?
This is what I don't get. And no, I don't support the death of 12-year-old girls. But this is the part that boggles my mind sometimes. So the mom, and I guess the dad in essence, believes vaccines.
Why not? Hold on. Why the dad in essence? Are you saying that men need to speak for women?
No, I'm saying that the only person commenting in this article is the mom. So that's why.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. Sorry.
If you read these things prior to the episode, you might,
So many articles that we put in that Google Doc for us to review over the week.
But this is what's crazy to me. The mom doesn't believe vaccines are safe.
Sure.
But a heart transplant, all right, I'll buy that science, but I'm not going to buy the other science.
Sure.
Like the vaccines don't fall under my religious beliefs. But you know what? Taking a heart out of another person and putting it in my child's body, that's fine.
I hate to say it, but it literally, I mean, to me, it is just the level of susceptibility by a large segment of the society. That if suddenly Robert F. Kennedy Jr. decides that he doesn't believe in transplants, I guarantee you, there'll be a start to get some momentum to suddenly we don't do transplants anymore. But because nobody's talking about how unsafe transplants are, you've got tons of people within this population that are going to be like, oh well, I'm pro-transplant, but I'm anti-vaccine. Like, not seeing any connection between science.
Right. Well,
like even Donald Trump said earlier this week, he cast a doubt that Mitch McConnell had polio. Like the dude had polio. It's like, we're not going back on the polio conversation. That vaccine has saved millions of lives over the past century. We're not having a polio. I had polio. It was terrible. What did Trump do? Like the next day, it was like, well, I don't know that he had polio. Like, just like it's fucking
Well,
embarrassing.
and to your
It's
point, the
genuinely
lack
embarrassing.
of knowledge of things going on, like there have been people going through Trump's executive orders and
Mhm.
pulling out executive orders that literally did nothing except appease his base. So like he signed an
Sure.
executive order stating that school districts cannot prevent kids from coming to school if they are not vaccinated against COVID-19. Would you like to know how many school districts in the country were keeping people from going to school if their kids weren't vaccinated for COVID-19?
I'm going to say 14.
Zero. There was no school district in the entire country that was requiring a COVID-19 vaccine for your kids to go to school. But Trump signed it because now he can say to his followers, oh, I did this for you.
Yeah.
Eggs are still $8 a dozen, but I did this for you.
Sure. Disgusting. Utterly disgusting. This is going to be an interesting ride. I'm trusting that there's going to be people who are going to be speaking loudly, and I'm going to sit off to the side of my ivory tower and enjoy the ride.
You can't even trust real Americans anymore, like Hulk Hogan, because an Akron woman is suing Hulk Hogan, Terry Bollea, better known as, and suing his Real American Beer Company after she was hit in the head with a sealed can of beer last August. Michelle Harlakowitz, an Akron woman who willingly attended a promotional event for Real American Beer at Thirsty Cowboys back in August of 2024. A sealed beer can was thrown an estimated 50 feet, striking the woman on her forehead along her hairline. She ended up needing a number of stitches and will have some permanent scarring. The lawsuit says that Hogan and others were riling up the crowd to promote the beer, tossing free cans to the crowd. She was standing near the back wall, apparently not paying attention, had no chance to avoid it. Brian,
Yeah.
is this a reasonable lawsuit or not?
No, not really. But I mean, in America, we like to sue. Whenever something bad happens to us, we sit there and turn around and say, hey, how can we make some money off of this? That's America for us. Do I want her to take a lot of money from Hulk Hogan and this beer company? Yes. Why? I don't like Hulk Hogan right now. I don't like this beer company. I don't like their politics. So I hope that they get, drawn to bankruptcy court over somebody getting hit. I mean, as you said at the top of the hour, the Phillies GM, he could take a beer can to the head and keep going.
Right in the middle of the forehead.
Middle of the forehead.
And fuck it.
He's not
Doing
suing
it
the
live.
Eagles. He's not suing the Eagles because somebody hit him in the head with a beer can. This woman is. It feels what you're saying, Ron, is that a man can take a beer can to the head, but not a woman. And I don't agree with that. I think women can take a beer can to the head just like anyone else.
Okay, fair enough. And it's been such a wild week that we haven't even mentioned up to this point the Kanye West commercial during the Super Bowl, which led people to his website, which was only at that point selling a T-shirt with a swastika on it.
Listen, the dude is so lost. I don't even have thoughts about him anymore. I don't even understand what is going on in that head of his. I mean, I also saw that his wife's that he and his wife are divorcing.
She filed for divorce. So this is a screenshot of him from his Super Bowl commercials. How much were Super Bowl ads going for this year? A few million?
No
3,
idea.
4 million?
Yeah, somewhere
So
around
he
there.
buys this ad. He films it on his iPhone in his dentist office. He apparently was having his grills redone because if you remember, he had his regular teeth
all taken out,
and had these grills put in. And so he's just spending $3 million to direct people to go to Yeezy.com and had taken everything else down from the website other than a T-shirt with the symbol of the Nazi Party on it.
And that website's been taken down. Right now, if you go to Yeezy.com, it just says in childish handwriting, Yeezy stores coming soon with a heart. And you know what the worst part was? Truth be told, he was selling lots of T-shirts.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
He was selling them. Like people were actually buying them.
So Billy's getting
Billy.
technical. iPhones don't use film, therefore he didn't film his commercial. You know what? It's an expression.
What do you got, champ? What do you got to say, champ?
And I was, I did up a funny little video this past week using a clip that was going around saying a podcast guest, got a tattoo of Brian winning the championship, and you see the guy and he's wiping his arm down and there's nothing there. I was going to make another saying another podcast, another person got a tattoo celebrating Billy's point total in the 2024 death pool. But I didn't do that because I tried to be a kind and benevolent champion. These kind of comments, maybe I think differently the next time. Maybe I think differently.
Sorry.
It's all right. One thing that people can do if they want to lift us up, if they want to support us, they can go to the podcast website, ronandbrianpodcast.com. You can click in the upper right-hand corner to become a patron and join our Patreon. It gives you access to Ron and Brian After Dark. That is additional content. We're going to start that in about 25 minutes. It's the stuff a little too spicy for this show. It's the OnlyFans content. It is strip club stories. It is a variety of content that YouTube doesn't let us put for free out there. So please visit, join, support it. This money all goes back into the podcast. We are very simple folks. Yes, Brian lives in a multi-million-dollar palace, but he is using embezzled funds, money, taken off the top that people don't miss. But he is not putting any podcast funds into his ivory tower, and I respect him for that. So we just ask you to help us bring you the best content possible. That's not too much to ask, is it, Brian?
Hurtful. Still hurtful, Ron. Still.
Why is it hurtful?
It is because you just accused me of embezzling funds. I don't do that.
All right, fair enough. And can I just say congratulations to you? Some of the folks out there know this, but this is Brian and his ladies' 3-year anniversary. Is this the anniversary of the first date, or is this okay?
That it is. Yes. Listen, it's and still going strong. That's the scary part. Scary part. Loving it. Absolutely loving it. But thank you very much. I will make sure to pass along those well wishes.
So, again, talking about my benevolence, I was, as we know, I wrote a parody song about Brian called Bry's Not Like Us, to the tune of Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us. I was also going to do a very similar shot-for-shot recreation of his Super Bowl performance. But instead of Serena Williams crip walking, I was going to have Brian's 2 ex-wives crip walking. But I said, maybe that's too much. Maybe that's too harsh. So sure. I passed on that. But I love your lady. Love you as a couple. So happy that you two found each other and are engaged. And we are looking forward to celebrating. Is the wedding date set yet? I know there is a plan to go over and do some wedding venue research, but
August, right now, mid-August
of this year.
Yes, but not nothing. Nothing has been finalized. I'm hoping in the next couple of weeks everything will be finalized.
Because you got to send out those save the dates, Brian. It is tradition to send out at least 6 months in advance a save the date.
And would you ever chalk me up as a traditional kind of person?
Well, I would just say after 2 weddings, I would think you would be well versed in wedding etiquette by this point.
That sucks. That sucks, Ron. How dare you? How dare you?
How dare me? You know how I dare?
Yes.
I got the title and I got your hat.
Bitch, I am. All right, buddy.
Anything else before we go get ready for After Dark?
Let's do it.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We will catch you next week.
Thank you for joining us on the Ron and Brian podcast. We're live each week on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. You can find prior episodes, links to our social media, and everything else Ron and Brian at ronandbrianpodcast.com. See you again next week.